Okay, you may recognise this, the Speeduino that we've done lots of work on. Basically built a board, blew the board up, transferred all our components onto a new board, and we were struggling to get it working, get everything fitted and doing what it should do, and trying to connect a wireless module to it. So the stage we're at now is the Speeduino is all built. The wireless module seems to work okay. Bluetooth module. That's connected up. We did have one that we spent a lot of time on, which just wouldn't connect properly, so another one purchased and that sorted it out. It's obviously a fault in the firmware or something with the other one. But tried looking into upgrading it and it was just beyond me, so we didn't do it. So we now have the Speeduino itself. We're using the trusty old power pack as a power supply for it. I do have it plugged in, so it's got a battery maintainer on it as well. This little device is an Ardustim, which I'm currently powering. See the green wire there, from a 5-volt reference. So that is set as an Ardustim with a set RPM of 500. And let's not look at the coils too much now. So my connection setup is this wire is positive and negative, just goes to the Speeduino to provide power to it. The Bluetooth module gets power from the header on the board. So we've got 5 volts ground, transmit and receive that are connected to the appropriate pins on the Bluetooth module. I also have, which we're going to try setting up, this is a positive connected to the battery. This under here is a negative. We have a negative and a positive that are actually going to all of the coils. That's permanent. This is wrapped around the spark plugs, and that's basically the same as the ground would be on the vehicle when the spark plugs are plugged in. These are smart coils, so basically I think they're off a Polo. These are designed so that a low level signal from the ECU, which in this case is the Speeduino, tells the plug when to fire. At the moment we're set up on wasted spark with 4 coil on plugs, which basically means that one of these will fire on the compression stroke and the other one, which is also on the exhaust stroke, will fire. It won't make any difference, it's just easier for the Speeduino to deal with it. So I'm going to apply power to the Speeduino and then show you what it looks like on Tuner Studio and with the unit running. So I've just applied power and we can see that on the Speeduino we're getting the lights for the coils, and we're also getting 2 lights for injectors as well, because I've got those set to sequential at the moment. So we can see that the Speeduino is receiving a signal and it thinks the engine's doing 500 RPM, so the output coil lights are flashing. It's connected up to Tuner Studio. You can see the engine speed there at 500 RPM and the map sensor, which I do have a tube on at the moment, but I need to look into that a little bit further, because if I suck or blow on this tube we should get an engine, a pressure change, and we're not, so I need to look into that a little bit further. I don't have a switch to put power to the coils, so what I've done is put my ammeter in line, so that's going to the coils. This is the actual power. I have my meter set to amps, sorry I can't see that, and if I turn this little light on so you can see things a bit better, if I using the meter in amps mode, so we're on 10 amps and common. We can see that the coils do actually work. Now what I've noticed is that they are all firing, they are all making the noise and doing what they should do, but my speed that I've set, 500 RPM, when I actually put the coils on, I can see that's jumping about, and the map sensor is giving different readings as well. Now I think that's absolutely fine, because if the map changes, that is sort of going to try and control the speed. It's going to try and give it advance to a certain degree. But what I don't like is the fact that we've set a speed and it's not sticking to that. I think that's the reason for it, so we need to investigate that. But for now, what I want to do is let's disconnect that wire, stop the unit sparking. So the Speeduino is still running, and it is running from the Ardustim. So what I'm actually going to do is change the programming of the Ardustim. So let me set that up and then come back. Not sure if I mentioned I'm powering the Ardustim from a 5-volt reference on the Speeduino board. Don't know if that's going to have an effect, so we'll see in just one moment. Okay, so let's disconnect the 5-volt feed from that, which will make it go dead. The Speeduino isn't getting an RPM signal, so that also goes dead. If I now plug in the PC to the stim, it powers back on, which obviously gives the signal again. And I just want to try see if that spark stays so it's still doing the same thing, so it's not the power to the Ardustim. See the RPM jumping up and down there, and we can see that map sensor is doing its thing as well. So we'll stop the spark, and this program is the Ardustim. So we're gonna connect it, and we can see that at the moment we've got a fixed RPM of 500. So let's change that to sweep, and we're gonna go from 200 to 1500. Let's save that config. So now, no matter what happens, this Ardustim is going to have a sweeping RPM, and we can see these lights are going up and down, as is the RPM we're getting on here, and as is the RPM that's being read by the Speeduino. Okay, so let's reconnect the coils and see what that does to our RPM. Is it going to be smooth or is it not? So no, it's still got a lot of interference on it, and I think that's coming from this map sensor. So the coils are working well, but we need to find out why, when we utilise the ignition outs, the map sensor is altered and the RPM is varied. So disconnect the coils and let's go and take a look at a few things. So what I can do now is I can disconnect Ardustim from the computer and I can just use that 5V again just to power it. So let's set that up. So we set that up again so it's powered itself. The Ardustim is standalone unit now because it's getting 5V reference from power from the Speeduino, and that's it. We can see it's still cycling, and if I turn off this light we can have a look at the quality of the spark. Which I'm going to say is good on all of the plugs. They are all firing. Let's just disconnect that for a moment, get the lights back on. They are all firing. But as I say, we're getting some interference. I'm not sure why that is. So this computer don't need Ardustim anymore. I can just close that down. Let's get this out of the way and see what's happening on this one. So we're back to the dashboard. We can see when we're not using the spark, that's doing exactly what it should be doing, but we can also see the engine map sensor, which is the manifold air pressure. We're not using, oh actually, the throttle position sensor, just thinking out loud. If I disconnect that, I wonder if we're going to get the same issue. Okay, I've got a few sensors set up on this, just with potentiometers to actually PlayStation joysticks. Let me disconnect that throttle position sensor and see if that makes a difference. I've just disconnected the throttle position sensor. It thinks it's no throttle at all now. The manifold air pressure is showing slightly higher. So if I now connect the spark up, let's see what it does. Now it's still jumping about. The engine map is also jumping about. Engine map doesn't jump about as much with no spark on. Throttle position sensor doing weird stuff. 9.5%. So I now need to expand my knowledge, because I've not got the knowledge at the moment, to find out what this is looking at. Obviously it's looking at the RPM in from the Ardustim at the moment that's generating the crank signal in effect. So I just want it to look at that and generate spark accordingly. So I'm just going to go away and see what settings I need to do to make that happen. So I've just gone to spark settings, and previously it was set to use the map. I've set it to TPS now. So let's close that. Let's set on TPS. So we can see the map sensor is still altering, but it shouldn't make any difference. The throttle position sensor is set low. It's actually disconnected. So put the spark back on and let's see if that RPM still jumps around. So yes, it does. I don't think it does as much, or am I just kidding myself? They sound more equal. Okay, what I'm going to do is disconnect a couple of those coils as well and see if that improves it. Don't know what it'll tell us, but I'm going to disconnect a couple and come back. Okay, I've now got the trigger wires for 1 and 2 disconnected, so let's do the same thing again. I'm conscious that that ground isn't very good and there'll be a lot of interference because obviously we've got an open board there, we've got the Ardustim next to it that's generating the signals. As soon as those coils fire, it could just be affecting the signal that goes into the Ardustim. So only 2 coils on. It's good to reconnect. So we're reconnected, we're running again. Two center coils there. The RPM is staying steady. Okay. That's doing what we've told it to do. Okay, so disconnect coils. What I'm going to do now is take those coils out and put the other 2 back in, see if it's the number of coils that's causing it or if it's individual ones. So let's get them swapped. So I'm going to reconnect 1 and 2, take 3 and 4 out. Okay, 1 and 2 are back in, 3 and 4 are disconnected. So let's see if we still get smooth RPM. No, we don't. Okay, so it's one of those that's the issue. Let's disconnect it one by one and see which one it is. So I've taken out one. So ignition 2 is the only one connected. Okay. And the RPM is doing exactly what we told it to do. So I suspect number 1 is going to be the coil which is nearest to the unit, so it looks like that may be generating interference. And the moment we're running off what I'm going to call number, well, it's 2 on the board, so a 4th coil. Okay. What I am going to do is I'm just going to reset the actual coils and put them further away from the Ardustim and from the unit itself. I think it's it's the left hand coil here that's causing interference, but that is obviously the closest one to the rest of the units. So I'm going to swap it around and just try and see if we can reroute things. Okay, I've got 1 and 4 in. 1 and 4 are now sparking. We have stable RPM. So it was number 1 that was causing the issue before, so I'll get 2 and 3 on as well, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we've got them all linked up and numbers corresponding now. So we've got all of them connected. We are sparking all of them. And we do have stable RPM. Excellent. What I want to do now is plug back in with the Ardustim and see what happens when we give it 6,000 RPM. So let's set it to do a sweep. So we have Ardustim open. We're going to connect to COM7. And let's set it to sweep from 200 to, let's start with 4,000 and save that config. Okay, so we can see the engine speed's going up to 4 now and coming back down. So let's plug the coils in. Be interesting to see what it's actually drawing when it gets to these high speeds. Well, okay, let's turn that meter on. So we're on amps, and let's see what it's actually drawing when it gets to the high speeds. So we're nearly at 4 amps. Sparks at those speeds just looks constant. Okay, so let's go even higher than that and see what we're actually drawing. So let's go to 6,000 RPM. And save that config. Now I'm going to wait until it's gone to the highest one. In fact, let's change that sweep speed so it does it a bit faster. Okay, so it's at the highest one now. It's at 6,000. We'll wait for it to come down and then we can see what it's drawing again. Okay, so it's coming down. Let's see what we're drawing. Didn't like that. It seemed to pick up and do Maybe it hadn't got to that before. This wire is quite thin, so we've got that cable. It just doesn't feel hot or anything. Providing the 12 volt to the coil, so I think we might need a bigger cable for that ultimately. But I'm just going to put that back on when it's getting up to the high one, and let's see what it actually takes when it gets to those really big RPMs. Okay, so it's at the highest one now. Wait for it to come down, just so I can take it off if anything strange happens. So it's on its way back down now. Let's plug in. And I am getting ready to pull the power plug if it starts to get to like 20 amps, because I don't think this wire is going to take that. $4,005. So at the moment, it's about an amp for every 1,000 RPM. 5.5. It just goes up to 5.5. So let's disconnect that and let's change this to 7. And save that. So now we're going to sweep from 200 to 7. We can see that's being matched on there. Throttle position sensor is disconnected, but obviously we are altering the engine speed and it's getting that from the crank signal. So we do need to sort that map sensor out. But I think that is for another day. Okay, that's coming back down. So what I want to do is get my power back in for the coils, and again watch the meter. Okay, so 6 amps isn't too bad. Coils seem to be performing well. Oh, a couple of them stopped firing then. But again, I think it's down to shonky test wiring. But I'm just going to turn the lights off so that we can see those coils and if they do stop firing. Doesn't really show on camera because all the coils have got different orientations, sorry, the plugs, but it's they're all exactly the same intensity and it's all working well. So our left one, in fact 2 stopped firing and came back. So 2 is that noisy one, but as you can see from number 1 and 2 are the same kind of coil. The number 2 isn't as down on the plug. I wonder if it's jumping a spark in the top cap because I've not pushed it down enough. Right, so I'm quite happy to call that a win and say that once we've sorted out the map sensor, this is ready to go on the car. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll go and look at the map sensor for the next one. We should be able to have a look at the map sensor on here, and when we suck or blow on the tube that the map sensor is connected to, we should get a different reading on that. So look forward to the next video, and I'll try and make it a bit sooner than this one. Thanks.